think now.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
So now the sound's already started.
That's good.
So, welcome to our masterclass. Thank you for coming today. The ugly truth in influencer marketing, what really matters, but no one's telling you. We're going to uncover some blind spots today, and we really hope you enjoy our learnings and that you can take them with you for your own campaigns and your own influencer marketing work. So we're actually going to start with a question, and this question is aimed at bringing everybody together here. So who here felt the pressure to improve the results of their influencer marketing campaigns this last year? Can I just have a show of hands?
Don't be shy.
Yeah, so there's definitely a few people out there. I think it's safe to say that it's not that easy anymore as it was 3 or 4 years ago in influencer marketing. We have a lot of new challenges, changing algorithms. The platforms are constantly bringing in new features. There are a sea of influencers, and it's not that easy how to know to pick the right ones. And today we're going to help you, and hopefully you can learn from us. And actually, Marie's going to start. But before we start, we want to introduce ourselves. So I'm Hannah. I'm Director Influencer Marketing at medialabel. And I've been working at medialabel for nearly 7 years now. So I started on the operational side, doing campaigns myself, and since then we've grown. So we're an agency in performance-based influencer marketing. Marie?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Marie. I am at medialabel now for almost 4 years, and I am in the partnership and sales team. And this is my first time on stage, and I'm super nervous, but also very excited to talk about one of my favorite client cases. And I would say we can jump right into it.
Yeah. So I'm going to hand over to Marie, and I'll be back in a few minutes.
Yes. All right. All right. So our topic today is a little story from one of my favorite clients, and it's actually very emotional also because NORDSEE and I'm very happy that she's here also today. We've met actually at the OMR back in 2022. So since then, we've been growing together, helping each other, and we've been integrating the first influencer activities back in the beginning of 2023. And it's very exciting to stand here today, and I'm honored to talk about the following topic. So now, NORDSEE, to give you a little bit of a background understanding, and also for the next activity that we're taking you into, NORDSEE is one of the oldest German companies in history when it comes to fast food restaurants, because NORDSEE started back in 1896, which is 100 years before I was even born. So they're very old, and they've been rooted in history, and they're known across generations. So coming from that, 70 years later, they started their first fast food restaurant called Quick Restaurant. And this way they invented and actually created a new happening in that niche, in that branch. And then in 2016, they started their first online appearance with their website and social media. And then in 2022, and this is where we met, they launched their app, and we helped them in the transition from print to digital. When it comes to the coupons, I guess everybody who knows NORDSEE from back then also, you've seen the coupons, the paper coupons that you would rip off. So we've been helping to actually generate the awareness, but also generate and get users actively using the coupons in the app. Now that you know a little bit more about NORDSEE, I quickly want to ask you to take out your phones and scan the QR code to be part on a little activity session in a second. So I think when I see the phones going down, that's when I would move to the next slide.
Yeah, I think most people.
Yeah, everybody?
Are done.
Give me some nodding heads. Yeah, all right. So, before you take a look only into the phone, we want you to imagine to be sitting at NORDSEE's table, to be part of the branding team and choose your first representative, your first creator for your very first campaign. And having in mind a little bit of the history that I just told you, from how you would assume the best creative fit would be for NORDSEE. So please choose wisely, and I would skip to the next slide. Is everybody done? Yeah? Oh, good. I hope the internet works. No? No?
Oh, no.
For some? Yeah? All right, that's enough for me. Then let's continue. I hope maybe in the meantime it will work. So now, before we go into your thoughts and the results of the little poll now, I want to take you onto the little journey that we had with NORDSEE. So how we started, what was the obvious, and actually that's something that we experience with a lot of brands when just introducing influencer marketing and not knowing yet, we maybe know the right fit for the retailers, but we don't know the social media behavior yet. We don't know which kind of people are actually interacting and which kind of audiences do we actually want to reach, and what type of creators can we actually then onboard on the campaigns that would also spread the word in several and different audiences. Now, this is what we were coming from. A little bit of the obvious, blonde, German, kind of looking like me. And but there's more out there, right? There's more than my type of looking people. So coming from that, we wanted to kind of evaluate and see there is more out there, and there needs to be more creators also in terms of the communication, to have an authentic voice, to reach to more audiences. Now, I would like to see the results from what you guys have thought now. And Jackie, if you would quickly help me with that. Thank you.
So let's see how many people that worked for.
Oh yeah, we see some.
Okay.
That's good. That's good. Kannst auf Präsentieren drücken.
You just have to quickly switch screens. Please bear with us.
Oh.
So, okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so it looks like some people managed to
That's
take
exactly what we wanted to see. So thanks everybody for voting wisely. And so now, just to name it, to name the category, let's say, or the kind of niche the creator persona is working in, you've been choosing the more like food-related content, which is the obvious, which is good. So now we can, go back to the presentation. Thank you. Just a second. Awesome. Dankeschön. Now, that said, this is exactly what we were also going for. More food related. I mean, this is where the audiences are obviously already kind of having the touch points. They're used to food content. They're used to that topic, let's say. Now, we've been going through many numbers and many cases throughout over 40 campaigns within 2 years that we've been working together. And in those campaigns, we had over 230 influencers actively working on the campaigns, being actually constantly on the campaigns, not only for a one-shot campaign, but also for long-term. And going through all these numbers, we actually saw there's something happening, because throughout our platform, we are able to actually run performance-based campaigns, which is something that's not really usual in influencer marketing. So one thing, as I said, that we were highly focusing on is the CPI campaigns, cost per install. So we would pay an influencer based on the numbers of installs they would drive on that campaign, or they would bring on that campaign. Now, here's something where we differentiate between a performance-driven campaign and a more like branding, brand awareness campaign, where we actually go for a brand fit. Now, on the performance side of things, we are able to onboard creators based on their performance, where it's only about what they actually bring towards the client, let's say. Now, on those campaigns, we can go a little bit more out of the box. We don't really need to stay with the brand fit, because it's not about that. It's about what is happening after a creator goes live, what is happening after a story went live, what is happening after those 24 hours, let's say, on Instagram, on a typical story. And then also what's happening after a click. How is the users behaving? Is the creator actually bringing active users? And what's happening afterwards? And this is actually where we're coming from performance marketing, looking into the deeper funnel, checking how the audiences are behaving from the creators. Now, this is where we actually figured out that there is an audience and a community that we've never actually really talked to, and where we never had tailored, messaged campaigns and active campaigns towards different audiences. Now, comparing with the other slide, where you see me, you still have the little NORDSEE poster here standing. Now, this is the actual community that was engaging the best, where we had, throughout all of our engagement rate analysis, the best numbers, where we had users being active, users interacting, also in terms of the stories with the creators and so on. So this is something we were able to actually figure out throughout the performance campaigns, because before, and that's not something about NORDSEE, that's something that we see in so many different niches and brands, where still we want to try, but we don't really go out of the box. So, and that's exactly what we could see on those campaigns, is that Arabic and Turkish-speaking communities were being missed out so far. So we onboarded, and we were lucky because also in our team we have two lovely Turkish-speaking women that helped us with the content approval. So obviously that was something really nice. And with the Arabic, we had some friends and so on. And also there's tools by now where we can check it out. So we've been going for Arabic and Turkish-speaking communities living in Germany. And when we faced the fact that actually 13% of our population in Germany speaks Turkish or Arabic at home, if you ask a brand, do you want to leave out, let's say, 15% of the population? I would say every brand would say, no. Why would we do so? So that's something we need to focus on a lot more, and to actually get the whole audiences that are out there and the users that are out there. To give you a little sneak peek how that could look like, I don't know if anybody here speaks Turkish.
Şimdi bacıkolarım, çok güzel bir çekilişle geldim karşınıza, ama bu sefer ben değil, NORDSEE yapıyor. NORDSEE aslında birçoğunuz biliyordur. Yani diğer ülkelerde var mı bilmiyorum, ama bu çekilişe sadece Almanya'dan ve Avusturya'dan bacıkolarım katılabilir. NORDSEE herhalde Avrupa'nın en iyi balıkçısı diyebilirim. Ben çok seviyorum bacım NORDSEE'nin balıklarını.
All right, so that was just to have you have a little bit of an understanding how a content can look like. It's the same thing, but it's just Turkish. So now, her, for example, she is reaching, I think if I have it correctly in my mind, it's 70% German and Austrian followers that live in Germany and Austria. But she just speaks Turkish with the community because it's her mother language and it's more authentic. And sometimes she makes a little mixture that made me feel like I understand Turkish at some point, but that was wrong. So now we've been coming from the obvious and coming from, yeah, that must be the brand fit. Now we transformed that into real audience leaders. And that is also, especially nowadays, I think something also that I'm honored to speak it out loud today, to make communities more visible, also in terms of our nowadays society. Now, to give the full picture again, just to make it a little bit more visualized, with the brand fit, with the obvious brand fit, we are able to cover the awareness and the activation of the campaigns, yes. So actually, and that's the thinking that we always have is, okay, we have creators and we want to reach customers, but we don't really think the other way. So if you find your real audience and if you are able and you feel comfortable with going out of the box a little bit, you might discover an untouched audience that you've never really spoken to before. So with that, we can kind of fulfill the whole picture. And besides thinking from creators to customers, we can actually find creator customers. So within our platform, and that's also one thing that really helped us to actually find that audience and to find the new creator persona, is that this creator persona actually applied on the campaigns. So they showed the interest that we didn't see before, but they showed us. And I think that's something very special. So based on all this data that we've learned so far, together with NORDSEE, we were sitting down and we were going into a lot more deeper analysis. So that's just a little example and just a little bit of a picture of the whole picture, actually, going back. I could go back into, I don't know, 10, 15 years more, but today I'm just going to show a little example of the time we've been working together. So now in 2023, you see a little drop of the revenue in April. Now in 2024, the drop is happening in March. And this is what's happening all over the years. Now, within that learning that we had, we were looking at the revenue numbers with NORDSEE together, and I'm happy that they were able to also kind of give us the transparency here. But we were able to finally name that revenue drop that's happening constantly throughout the last years. And no one really realized what it is. Now, knowing your community and knowing a big part that you've been missing out for a long time, we could finally name it. So just a short question. Is anybody here, raise your hand, who can relate or who has ever heard of that sentence before? That's good. All right. Very nice. So Ramadan Mubarak. Ramadan Mubarak means blessed Ramadan. Ramadan, for the people who don't know what it means or who are not that familiar with the topic, Ramadan is the holiest time of Muslims all around the world. In fact, you are fasting from sunrise to sunset. And I've been doing it 2 times, and it's hard. It's really hard. But it makes you also focus a lot more on yourself. It's about reflection, it's about community, and it's about also family and friends and kindness, charity. You get together. And that happens at Iftar. So Iftar is the moment on each day where you break fast. So, and that's a very special moment, actually. You can be I felt proud at the end of the day that I made it. Like, you don't drink, you don't eat, you don't swear, and many more things around it. And so, considering the fact that we have over 6 million Muslims living in Germany, why didn't we talk to that community? Why didn't we talk to the people also in their language, like use authentic voices? But before everybody goes out here and thinks, oh yeah, I'm going to start a Ramadan campaign, please keep in mind, it's a very sensitive topic, and it's nothing that you just drop in and start. One thing that I've seen and realized this year is there's so many retailers out there this year who really started actually facing that topic and having decoration for Ramadan and so on. So it's the first time actually this year in Germany that we've really seen action on that topic in stores and with a lot of brands. So last year, for example, so there was, I have to drop it because there was a very nice campaign that we saw from Scholz and Friends with McDonald's together. Because it's the hardest thing when you do fasting to actually see food everywhere. And what they did, for example, was placing digital out-of-home campaigns from McDonald's, having empty fries boxes, and then at the time of iftar, they would fill up with fries so that they won't make people who are fasting see food every day, which was a very nice topic. And yes, so what we did was slightly starting last year, but this year even with a closer focus and also with NORDSEE together in their internal store communications, we've been creating campaigns iftar with NORDSEE together. So we had creators with authentic voices, tailored messaging, and to bring awareness to the topic, to have the communities being seen and heard. And I think that's not only, and please don't just go out and take that for that topic, because that's for so many different communities out there that they might not feel heard or touched or seen, or they can't maybe relate with the other marketing funnels or the languages that we're using. So here we started something different, and just to give you a little bit of a quick insights here as well.
In 10 Minuten ist Iftar, das bedeutet ja für 10 Minuten endlich wieder essen. Und heute dachte ich mir, ich will unbedingt bei NORDSEE essen, weil die gerade so krasse Angebote haben.
Wir hatten heute eine Mission, und zwar Fastenbrechen bei NORDSEE. In der NORDSEE-App gibt es super coole Ramadan-Coupons, also perfekt fürs Fastenbrechen.
Kommt eine Herzensempfehlung von mir. Wer mich schon länger folgt, hat schon ein paar Mal meine Stories gesehen. Immer wenn ich in der Stadt bin, gehe ich meistens zu NORDSEE essen. Und warum wohl? Wegen der coolen NORDSEE-App. Die kann ich euch von Herzen weiterempfehlen. Meine Familie feiert die App genauso wie ich.
All right. So now you kind of got a feeling how it could look like, and how the new audience, not new, old, but not really seen before, how we reached out to them and how we used authentic voices to do so. Now, after talking about that fact, we've been looking again into the numbers, and this is where it gets interesting. So now on that slide, we actually named it because you will see Ramadan is moving, and it's not constantly like, I don't know, for us, Christmas will always be on the 24th of December. Ramadan is moving. So this year was from the 28th of February until the 29th of March. And this is where we, for this year, could start to actually fill that gap. And I think that's something, if you start understanding your communities, if you start understanding how your communities are communicating and what's relevant for them, that's actually also my point where I'm giving up to Hannah, because she can tell you even more about how communities and audiences are working. And yes,
Exactly.
Thank you,
Marie. So,
thank you.
I guess we go from one ugly truth to the next, and Marie's ugly truth was that sometimes you're not speaking to the right audiences in the right way, and there are uncovered opportunities and potentials. But the thing is, I mentioned it at the beginning, not even relevance, like our Ramadan-focused campaigns, can sometimes fight fatigue. And I'm sure there are brands and agencies sitting here also wondering how they can improve their results, because I know that not only we, but other people are struggling with the algorithms and the unpredictability of social media, especially in the last 1 to 2 years. So I've coined a very similar term to Anne-Kathrin Schmidt's term this morning. I was watching her presentation. I've called it influencer immunity. She actually called it influencer fatigue. And this, for me, is the psychological disruption or whatever we don't like about influencer content, which is causing us to not want to watch it. And I think even as a person who is in influencer marketing, I've even myself sometimes, I've seen influencer content and I've swiped on, because it might be to do with the influencer, it might be to do with their content, but we are all hyper aware of the construct of influencer marketing nowadays, and that's not the same as it was a couple of years ago. So the thing is, we all need to work on ways to improve our numbers still, even though we're fighting against this resistance, this psychological resistance to influencer content. And we've noticed a trend, and that trend is that we've made influencer content louder, i.e. we worked on the last 1 to 2 years on our hooks, we worked on storytelling, we worked on making the content higher quality. Even in some cases, influencers have cinematic content, but the audiences decide whether they're going to watch the content or not watch the content. So we only have the power to a certain point. However, there are things you can do as a brand or as an agency to help you fight this. And it's definitely something that we had to convince our brands of for a while. But I'm bringing a case from our most recent NORDSEE campaign. That was for the burger launch. If you haven't heard already, NORDSEE launched a burger, a salmon burger, and it's actually very tasty. So go and check that out. And here there are 3 content examples from Instagram stories. First is a static content piece, 75,000 impressions. Second is a video content piece, 45,000 impressions. And third is another static content piece, 65,000 impressions. Now, I'm pretty sure that everyone here can do the maths. The static content pieces have almost double the amount of reach in comparison to the video content. So we have a clear winner. And whilst I'm not suggesting that brands should only do static content, if you are working with influencers on a longer term basis, which I'm hoping that most brands have realized works a lot better now in 2025, you should and you can mix in static content to your content mix. And the reason why this works so well is because if you think about your user behavior on social media, by the time you've even decided if you're going to consume the content or not, you've actually already consumed it. So you've seen very clearly that this is a promotion of NORDSEE. And we need to generate more touch points in 2025 in order to have success in our campaigns. Also, I'm pretty sure that everybody's struggling with their CPM prices. So we can see that in this case, static content is a lot more effective. But here's the thing. Not every campaign is as successful as our NORDSEE case, and I'm sure everybody knows that. And on this left side, you see a classic LinkedIn success story. 150% plus in the increase of followers. And as we know, we hear a lot of success cases on LinkedIn. But not every campaign ends up like a LinkedIn post. And of course, this is a bit of irony here, because we see on the right side, there's a Slack or a Teams, so some sort of internal Slack communication where the colleagues are talking about the fact that actually those followers that were gained, they weren't that good. And this is indeed a reality. So I can see a few keywords here: fake followers, low CTRs, talking about followers coming in the demographic of India. And this all comes under the umbrella of fraud. Now, do you actively check for fraud on your influencer campaigns? So can I just get another show of hands here? Okay, so yeah, obviously we do, which is why I'm standing here today. And for me, this show of hands, very disappointing, because this is a majorly important topic in our industry. So I'm bringing some numbers from our last year at medialabel. 500 campaigns, 6,000 influencers, 300 fraud cases. That is the ugly truth of our industry. And a lot of brands might not be aware of this because they're not tracking in the way that you can do. And I don't want anybody to stay naive. Influencer marketing isn't any different to any other industry. Anywhere where people can earn money, earn very good money, of course there are going to be a few who cheat the system. And I'm sure that even with your private profiles, you've definitely had these DMs to say that you could buy followers or likes or views. So we're actually very aware that this is happening, but not many companies are doing much about it so far. So of course I'm here to help. So what does fraud look like? There are a few red flags, and I'm pretty sure that some of these red flags you're already aware of. So bot followers. I think if people have been working in influencer and social media marketing, they know there are a lot of bots on the platforms, and platforms are sometimes doing things about it, sometimes not. There are engagement pods. For some companies, this is also a form of fraud when influencers are in WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups and support each other on their posts. Yes, it's a form of solidarity, but it's not real engagement. Then we get to the stage of faked likes, faked views, and the last point, fraudulent traffic. And this is something that I'm going to talk about in detail in the next slides, which might be a question mark for you right now. But the big problem, and probably the reason why so many people here today haven't raised their hand, is that people or influencers or anybody engaging in this type of behavior, they're doing it well. So you might see good numbers. You might see really strong engagement rates, higher reach. You might think that you're getting a great price and you have a low CPM for a certain campaign. And they can even go to the point where they can fake lower funnel KPIs. And here's the problem. It's going to cost you. So it's going to cost you impressions that actually don't exist, clicks, conversions, and return of advertising spend, which I guess is the most important topic for a lot of brands and agencies this year, whilst we're in our economic crisis. So, how to spot it before it's too late? I'm going to start with follower growth. It's something that I think if you've been working in influencer marketing for a few years, then you definitely know there are influencer discovery and analytics tools. You can see if there are any peaks and troughs in the follower growth, and that might be a reason for you to not select a certain influencer. You can, when you're speaking to the influencer or the management, ask about views and impressions and how these develop over time. We've all known some obvious cases of when people get married or when they potentially have a baby that we might see that the views are inflated and then they go back down. So that's always something to be aware of, just to mention it again. And you can use agencies or tools to see how certain influencers have performed on one campaign and see if that they've performed well on campaign A, they might also perform well on campaign B, and that you know if that an influencer is working with a brand over a long period of time, then it should be a good sign. But of course, as not all brands and agencies are looking into the numbers deeply, it is still something to be aware of. And you will need to go deeper into the data to realize that some traffic is potentially fraudulent traffic. So I now present clicks analysis, website visit duration, looking at if visitors have come onto a website and they've bounced off, and conversion trend analysis, so seeing within a certain cohort what is the average number of conversions, what is a good performing influencer, and what is potentially an influencer that had a weaker performance. And only when you know to analyze the data deeply will you recognize that sometimes there are influencers who potentially don't have clean traffic. So here you can see that we have in our product some click reports, and actually these screenshots are in many different languages because at medialabel we are active on 7 different markets. And we're not only looking at where the followers are coming from, we're also looking at if there are duplicate clicks, because we know that real users will click potentially a couple of times, but they might not click again and again and again from the same IP addresses. So I've brought a sneak peek of our newest and most sophisticated fraud alert. And whilst I appreciate that you can't see this in detail, I would like to run you through how we're looking at traffic. So at medialabel, we know that there's a range, and it doesn't mean that just because some clicks have been flagged that an influencer is a fraudulent influencer, that they're a fraudster. So there's a scale. And we've got a lot of data because we've been on the market for 7 years, like I mentioned already. So we are able to see where is this healthy boundary? What is traffic which can be accepted, and of course which we would like to praise the influencer for, and where are clicks but we'll maybe reject them so that the clients aren't going to have to pay for that traffic. And then we get a breakdown of the different IP addresses. So this is the level that you need to go into. So going back to my further slide asking how deep is your data, to recognize these sort of trends. Now, up until now, it might not really be tangible for you, what I'm saying. So I've brought a small case study. 20,000 euros budget, I think pretty standard situation. 4 influencers booked for a package of content. And there's one fraud case here. Of course, I've adapted the numbers slightly, and unfortunately, we're not yet at the stage where we can stand up here with one of our clients, but maybe in the future years. It's still a taboo topic, and not many people are talking about it, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to start in this masterclass. So you see the influencer fees, you see the reach generated, you see a range of click-through rates, so the third column, and then you see the purchases. And you might be wondering, well, why is there such a big range in the purchases? But you also know that in 2025, it's not really the time in influencer marketing anymore where every single influencer campaign is a big hit. I like to say to our team or internally, 1 or 2 from 10 influencer cases are a hit and are potential new best performers for our clients. The others, good, average, and sometimes even bad. So indeed, the case with the free purchases is a fraud case. Some people might not have noticed it because the click-through rate is strong. So if you're not going deeper into the data and you're staying on this higher level funnel analytics, then you wouldn't have noticed it. And the problem is here that with the fraudster on the German market in 2025, CPM of 48.50 euros, quite okay. CPC, so cost per click, sorry. Effective cost per click of 140, also okay. Without the fraudster, you see that taking out this content fee, which we of course do if we recognize fraud cases, increases the CPM because there's not necessarily a correlation between the booked CPM and the results, but it reduces the CPC to 130. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone's thinking this is not groundbreaking. It's 7%. But imagine this brand invests 1 million to influencer marketing per year. Now that's a cost saving of 70,000 euros if we potentially say that if this trend is something that is happening on the market in general, that's a cost that they have which they could be saving. So, another shocking statistic is that only 2% out of 3.4 million links analyzed worldwide have any parameters. So actually, nobody's paying attention to this oh so important topic. And if I can do anything, it's to tell you that this ugly truth, it's out there, it's happening, it's real. And it's something that you as a brand or an agency or together with experts like us from medialabel need to get prepared for. So we need to step away from trust slightly and start using tools. So demand full insights. If you have the opportunity, use first-party data. So different tools, including our own platform, enables you to speak to the influencer and get them to share your data with you. Use link level tracking, and like I said, analyze those cohorts, otherwise you're not going to be able to recognize any of these trends. And don't just track vanity metrics, also track outcomes. And whilst I'm pretty aware that a lot of brand teams right now might not have the expertise, maybe you can turn to your performance team in-house or speak to agencies like us who specialize on topics like this to find the right setup and to learn from each other, because a lot of people talk about brand performance campaigns, but we also need to talk about brand performance traffic. So start using links, and even if it is a brand awareness campaign, it doesn't mean that you can't benefit from tracking other KPIs. So, Marie, come back up onto the stage. And I guess we can summarize a lot of the things we've said today before we go into what I think could be quite an interesting question and answer session. So, maybe handing back over to you quickly.
Sure. Thank you.
Let's switch places.
Yeah, I mean, I hope everything I said was clear enough to kind of stay in your head, and I hope that you can try to maybe start thinking a little bit more out of the box, start a little bit more trying to look for new users, and pause and switch up your perfect match. And one thing that we always talk about is like, don't just look for users. Start having users as your voices and your representatives. I can click for you.
Yeah, you can click for me. Start data matching to find trends. So the point with the static content, it came originally from the fact that, and maybe I'm going to talk about quite a controversial topic now, from the fact that we introduced a sort of reach guarantee for our clients on our campaigns. And any management, I see a few friendly faces here, will know this. And we guarantee a certain reach for our clients for certain campaigns. And what we like to do, if this reach isn't fulfilled, is a reminder. And this reminder was often a static sequence, something that we also hadn't thought to use before because, let's be honest, a lot of brands, agencies feel that this could be quite lazy and maybe not the best for their money if they're already investing a couple of thousand euros into content. But by tracking this data, like we do with our platform, we noticed that this static content is always getting more reach. And it's not just on the NORDSEE case, it's happened on a lot of different campaigns for clients from A to Z, from beauty to banks and all the different sort of clients we have. So not only is it static content, but I'm sure you've also heard that the shorter content is, so less sequences in Instagram stories, for example, is also more effective. And whilst that is a learning mainly based on Instagram as a platform, we wouldn't have done it if we didn't match our data. Also, same goes for the case with Ramadan. We have only seen this because we looked deep into the data and started matching trends. So don't only concentrate on the operational side of influencer marketing. Sometimes it's really worth going deeper into the data, and that's the way that you're going to be able to increase your results.
And especially communicate, because I mean, that's something that we are manifesting every day, also for us internally. And I would assume and bet that a lot of people can relate from all of those different niches and brands out there, that different teams need to start communicating a lot more. And especially, let's say, the influencer team and the performance team, the branding team and the performance team, especially those two. This is what we try to combine, and this is also what we see internally. Without that communication, we can't see the full picture.
Exactly. And of course, I've just talked about it, so I guess everybody can still remember that point. Stop fraud in its tracks. This is something that can save you a lot of money, and I don't think your budget or our budget wants to suffer under the reality of some of the influencer cases that we have in 2025. So
now, actually, yeah, we're already coming to an end, and I guess also people need to go to their next masterclass. We would still have 5 more minutes if you are still hungry for more and have some questions for us. And we can have the Q&A now. I would still go into the next slide because there's one little special that we have for you within our lovely NORDSEE team who are also here today. And feel free to scan the QR code and get a well-deserved little thank you from NORDSEE at our booth. Hall A1, booth A03, and we have a little voucher code for you called #NoFishyBusiness. So feel free to scan it. We also have our contact details in there as well, and also from the NORDSEE team.
Yeah. Maybe just to mention, Marie, sorry.
Yeah.
That's food. So the goodie is not just a pen or something. So if you're hungry, we know that the OMR prices aren't the cheapest options these days. So we have a lot of Fischbrötchen for you. And of course, they're cooled and everything. So no worries about that. Yeah. So I would say back to the Q&A.
Yep.
So, does anybody have any questions about anything that we spoke today, or just a general advice that they need? Just looking.
Yes, please.
Yeah? You have a question?
Yeah.
I'm just going to come so make sure that I can hear you. Yeah. Yeah. So I mentioned that static is the new sexy, and she was asking whether it applies to other formats. Actually, it's definitely a trend that we've seen on Instagram stories, but I think considering the term that I coined, which is influencer immunity, and Katrin Schmitz talked about influencer fatigue, I think there's a general psychological rejection towards influencer content sometimes. And everybody knows that there are certain hooks that have been used multiple times. And I think there is some sort of beauty in the fact that if you use static content, a user, if they're genuinely interested, can indeed proceed to inform themselves about a brand. And that is something sometimes that users prefer to do. Not in all cases, but I guess it depends on the way the content's built up. So we've had really good experiences in Instagram stories. I can't say that it's an actual trend on other platforms, but I can imagine that it's also as effective. As we know, carousel posts in the Instagram feed, for example, can also gain much more reach and are pushed by the Instagram algorithm in comparison to video content. Yeah, thank you. Pascal?
How do you manage all these crowd cases? Is there any specific way how you handle it?
Yeah.
Do you force the influencer to do 3 reminders or something like that?
Yeah.
Just tell me more about it.
Yeah. So very interesting question. I was actually expecting this one to come. How do we manage the fraud cases? Well, of course, we have terms and conditions on our platform. And I would say that you definitely need some sort of contract which mentions what's going to happen in these cases. First things first, no accusation, because you don't know whether the influencer or if there's another party involved, such as the management, whether that's something that they intentionally have done or potentially they've been targeted. Now, we know it's actually a competitive business, so I would say no accusation. We have the facts, also very, very important to rationally list what's happened and why this is a problem. And depending on the degree, so you saw that we have a scale. If we see a lot of fraud, then we're going to, of course, not pay the influencer for the cooperation. That's covered in our terms and conditions. And cut the influencer from our portfolio. We don't want to work with influencers that have highly fraudulent traffic. If it's within a healthy range, let's say, then we inform the influencer because it's something that they can also maybe improve on. Back in the day, in 2015, a lot of people use these follow-for-follow apps to build up their communities. And I think sometimes that's a reason why bot traffic is still, and now this is just an assumption of mine, but I think it's a reason why bot traffic is attracted to their profiles. So communication is key, like with most things in life, and make sure that you have a contract where everything is listed. So, how are we doing for time?
Yeah, we have 1 more minute.
Yeah, okay, so I would say
we have 1 more minute to say thank you.
Yeah, say thank you. Back to the QR slide.
Yeah, that's
just in case anyone hasn't scanned it yet.
Feel free to grab your well-deserved thank you and snack.
Yeah, thank you so much and enjoy
and thanks
OMR.
for listening. All right.